Hey guys, Matt here, your instructor for NETI 105 or 115. And I wanted to do a quick video here going over Packet Tracer and NetLab Plus, two of the tools that we'll use to do the labs and Packet Tracer assignments in this course. So if you're a NETI 105 at least, you should have also been enrolled in a Packet Tracer 101 course. And if you click into that course, once you log into NetICAD, it's in NetICAD, not in Ivy Learn. So if you click in your Packet Tracer 101 course, you can see there's not a whole lot here. There are a couple of, there's a chapter 1, 2, and 3 that consist of videos and some things to read through that talk about Packet Tracer. I'm going to talk about a lot of it here in just a minute. But it's a good idea to click through some of these. You can see they do have Flash. You got to update your Flash player. Come on, Cisco. Who uses Flash nowadays? I guess Cisco does, right? And there is a tryout, my first Packet Tracer lab. And you got to download it here or use Flash. The only deliverable, in other words, one of the two things that you need to do for this Packet Tracer 101 course, again, if you're NETI 105, it does count on your final grade. It's a small percentage, but an important one is you need to do this, test your understanding of Packet Tracer. It's 24 points. It's 24 quick multiple choice questions. Basically, I don't even care what your score is. I just want to make sure that you have done it, right? So you want to read through this stuff. Take a few minutes this first week of class, read through this stuff, and then click through your 24 questions here, and then give us some feedback. Now, Cisco actually wants this feedback, so please make sure you do the feedback and submit that for Cisco. And then that will count you as completed in the course, which is fantastic, right? So that's really all you have to do for this Packet Tracer 101. It's just read through the stuff. Take the 24 question quiz and then do the course feedback. So let's look at Packet Tracer itself. Now, what is Packet Tracer? It is a simulation program that allows us to create simulated networks. So when I just open up Packet Tracer and let's go to how do you get Packet Tracer? Well, right here in your Packet Tracer 101 course is download Packet Tracer, right? So this will take you to the Cisco download site. It is a Cisco product, right? So Cisco puts this out, which is nice. And so what Packet Tracer is a simulator. So it allows us to take things like, we've got some routers here. I could grab some switches, right? And I could grab some PCs and connect all this stuff up and make them talk, right? So I'll connect these guys up just real quick, just to show you what it'll look like when it's all done. And then we'll kind of step back for a minute and do a little rewind, and I'll show you what we're doing. So I've got some PCs connected to a switch, and then we'll go ahead and we'll connect the switch to a router, and there we go. So I've got our own little network there, and we could keep going, connect other stuff too. All right, so let's go back, and let's actually get rid, well, we'll keep it. So you notice that when I first open it up, I've got a blank canvas. There's not a whole lot going on, right? It's just a big white screen, and I can create the network that I want. I can zoom in a little bit if I want to. That looks a little nicer. And I can, as I put additional devices on here, you can see my little link lights turn green and everything, and I could try to send pings, little ping packets from one PC to another to see if it works. So your devices down here, the way you build a network is you've got little devices down here. The top row are the categories, the device categories. And then in the bottom row, you've got different types. So for example, we've got network devices here in this top row. In the bottom row, then we have kind of the subcategories. So we've got routers, switches, hubs, which we should never use, wireless devices, security devices, which Cisco calls adaptive security appliances, and some WAN or wide area network emulation, right? So and this all falls under network devices. So if we look at routers, we're almost always going to use this first one, the 1941 router. You don't need to worry about any of the other ones. And then under switches, we're almost always going to use this 2960 switch. Really don't need to worry about any of these other ones. So that's what we're going to use most of the time. And then the other category here we want to look at is end devices. And this could be things like generic PCs or laptops or, I don't know, a TV. I think there's a tablet in here, a smart device, right? We got a smartphone. So most of the time we're just going to use these PCs. And then the other big category we want to look at is the connections, right? So here under connections, we've got the lightning bolt, which is an automatic connection that'll select the best connection type. We've got a console connection, which we'll talk about. A console connection is a way for me to connect from the serial port, the good old RS-232 port on a computer, into the console port on a switch or a router to configure those devices. And we'll learn all about the console port and what its use is as we go through the course. And then there are lots of other connection types too that we're not going to worry about as much. The one that we may possibly see is a crossover cable. If we've got, for example, if we've got two routers and we want to connect two routers directly, I have to use a crossover cable for that to work, right? And we'll talk about what a crossover cable is versus a straight through cable for, you know, in a few weeks. For now, I just want you to kind of see what Packet Tracer will do. We've got other connection types here that we won't have to worry about, so like fiber optic and serial and cable modem and things like that. But we're generally just going to use these first couple types here. Now, some other parts about Packet Tracer that are really interesting is this is all known as what's known as the logical network, right? This doesn't tell us anything about where the devices physically are. It just tells us how data flows through our network. There is also a physical tab up here, and you can, it gives you like a little home city, and you can create branch offices in different places. We're not going to spend too much time on this physical tab. 99% of our time is going to be on the logical tab. One of the great things about Packet Tracer too is that we can operate it in real time, meaning it operates the same speed a real network would, or we can go into simulation mode over here, and we can look frame by frame. We can look millisecond by millisecond if we want to. So for example, if I click on this little envelope over here, this allows me to send ping packets to test connectivity. So I can click on the source first, and then click on the destination. Oh, and PC2 has no functional ports. All right, I know what we did. So we've got to, I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to click on, so this actually gives us a chance to look at PC2. If I click on one of these devices, it takes me to the kind of the device page here, and I've got a physical tab where I can look at, the physical view of the page. I've got a config tab that we're not going to use a whole lot. This is kind of like a cheater tab, where it gives you shortcuts to certain things. On the PCs, we're going to use the desktop tab a lot, and the kind of the things we're going to use on the desktop tab are IP configuration terminal, which is like our terminal emulation program like PuTTY, and the command prompt. So in this case, I'm going to go to the IP configuration and just give it, tell it to use DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, which we'll cover here in a few weeks. And did I already get this one? Let's see, make sure we get all of them here. Fantastic. And so now if I try to ping, I'll try to ping, or I can click capture forward, and I can see all my little packets flying around here, and I can click on those packets and I can see the information that's in each one of them, right? I can see the layer 4, layer 3, layer 2 addresses, the layer 1 information, and I can see all of the header fields. We're going to study what's in all these header fields. But that's really the great part about Packet Tracer is we can set up these simulated networks, and then we can slow things down. It's like bullet time, right? We're going to call it packet time. It's like packet time. All right, that's really cheesy. Anyway, we're going to slow it down and look at each individual packet as it's as it's crawling through the network, right? And we can move this little speed slider over here to the right and click auto capture play, and then we can see these ping packets moving around. And the nice thing is I can, so we're doing some spanning tree protocol, we're doing some Cisco discovery protocol. It shows me each packet here, and it tells me what the protocol is, what's going on. Now we're doing some ARP, and then we're doing some more STP or spanning tree protocol. And I can click on any one of these and see the information that's in that packet as it's flying around. So that's pretty cool. I can also speed up time if I want to. Well, it's kind of sped up as fast as it will, but I can go back to real time, and let's go back to real time for a minute. And I'll do another ping. All right, so let's say from 1 to 2. And the way I see if that works is down here at the very bottom right, there's a little arrow pointing to the left. And if I click that, it opens up this window. And that shows me that my ping from PC1 to PC2 was successful. And there's this is one of the quiz questions, there's a little fire button. And if you click on that little fire button, it should do it again, but it's not doing it, whatever. We're going to click on this little add simple PDU. PDU stands for Protocol Data Unit. We'll get that too. But see, now I can ping from PC0 to PC1, and that was successful. So most of the time with Packet Tracer, I'm actually going to close this here and not save my work, because most of the time you're going to open up a Packet Tracer Let me go back to NETI 105 course that I have right now, and let's go into this one. Most of the time you're going to open up a packet tracer file that's already been created for you, so the topology is already there. So here's a packet tracer. Examine the ARP table. That's not what we want to do. MAC and IP addresses. Let's find one. Connect a router to a LAN. That's a good one. So with those packet tracer assignments, remember there's the PKA file is the actual packet tracer file, and the PDF file, well, the PDF is just the PDF, right, that you're going to fill in and submit. So if I click on the PKA and download it, when I open that guy up, it's going to open up Packet Tracer, so you've got to have Packet Tracer installed. Make sure you have version 7.0 or later. And I'm going to get two windows here. Whoops. We'll size in the old-fashioned way. I'm going to get two windows here and one hiding in the back. So this one hiding in the back is actually the instructions, and it's mostly identical to that PDF document that was back in NetICAD, right? The only difference here is it's just got the instructions. It doesn't have a place for me to type in my answers. So this just gives me instructions here. But you can see my topology already, my network is already kind of built over here. And then I'm going to go through and complete all the steps. Usually it will give you some type of addressing table up here at the top, some IP addresses to put in that you may or may not need to configure. Some of these may already be configured, but it looks like the routers have not been. And you're going to follow the steps here. And one of the nice things about Packet Tracer, which is pretty cool, is notice there's a box down here that says check results, right? So I'm going to click check results. And here it shows me that I did not complete the activity. I can click on assessment items, and it's going to show me each of the items that it's looking for, and a check mark if I did it, and a red X if I didn't. So that, and I can close this now, and it just takes me back to the instructions window. So it's a really nice way in Packet Tracer to see if you are completing the steps that it wants you to. Right? So when I'm all done with this, I'm going to turn in, I'm going to go back to NetICAD. I'm going to turn in my PDF document that's all filled in that I've saved. And I'm also, what I would also like you to do, it's not required, but what makes it easier for me to grade is if you screenshot that check results window, right? So run the check results, screenshot it, and just upload that screenshot too. It makes it really easy for me to see that you completed the whole Packet Tracer. You'll have a blue submit button up here instead of the speed grader on your screen. So that's it for Packet Tracer. The other thing I wanted to show you was NetLab. And let me go into a new one here. And just very quickly, NetLab is really cool. It's NetLab is a way for us to remotely configure actual live equipment, routers, real routers and switches that are in Indianapolis on the IUPUI campus. So you each should have an account for NetLab. The URL is netlab1.ivtech.edu. So NetLab, the number one, netlab1.ivtech.edu. And your password when you first log in is password and the number 1, right? So just password 1, all lowercase. And when you come into NetLab, it's going to have you do, it uses Java. So you got to have Java installed. It'll prompt you to install Java if you haven't. But when it'll do a connectivity test with Java first, and then it'll bring you to a page that looks like this. And in order to use NetLab, what you're going to do is click on Scheduler. Now, I apologize, your screen's going to look just a little bit different, right? So if you when you click Scheduler, it's going to show you the class you're in. So it'll show you NETI 105 or NETI 115, and then the section number, whatever your instructor has named the class. So you're going to click on that class. I'm just going to click on Reserve an Equipment Pod for my own use for now. And then after you guys click on the class, it's going to show you a list of labs that are available in that class. Now, those labs should match up fairly closely. It might be just a little bit off, but they should match up fairly closely with the labs that are in NetICAD. So, for example, you should see one that says 6.3.2.7 lab exploring router physical characteristics, right? And you're going to click on that lab and open it up. And what NetLab will do is, first it'll take you to the scheduler. Right, after you've selected a lab. Now what the scheduler is you can see all 16 pods that we have here. You can see I'm in pod 14 right now. We'll go back to that in a minute. We have 16 Cisco pods, and then there's some Red Hat too. You're welcome to play around with Red Hat if you want to go into the Red Hat pods, but not for this class, right? We don't need it for this class. And I know you're probably thinking, only 16 pods, right? For the whole, and this is for the whole state. I've never, even during exam weeks, I've never seen NetLab have more than maybe 5 or 6 people in it at a time. So you should never have never have trouble getting a pod. All right. That being said, maybe during week 16 when we're doing the skills exam, because you will do the skills exam here in NetLab, you may want to reserve your pod in advance, and you can definitely reserve your pod for anytime you want. So if you know that you always, Friday nights you have nothing you would rather do than get on NetLab and do your Cisco homework, your NETI 105 homework or 115 homework, then by all means schedule every Friday night for the rest of the semester. You probably have no trouble finding a pod on Friday night, right? Let's be real. So you've clicked on the course, you've clicked on the lab that you want to do. Now it takes you to the scheduler. So I'm already in pod 14, but I'm going to go to pod 13 too. I'm going to click right below this red line. This red line indicates the current time. And yes, you can see what time it is. It's late night here. But the red line indicates the current time. So I'm going to click right underneath it, and it's going to take me to this little scheduling screen. And I want it to say now, start time now. And I want it to go till whenever. And then you can either restore configs from the last reservation, or usually you're going to go to no configs loaded. It may not actually give you this choice when you guys are logging in to do one of those labs, but I'm going to click OK and then say I'm done. And now when you go back to, it'll take you back to this screen or one similar to it. And now you can see you have the option to enter the lab, right? So here I'm going to enter the lab. And one of the things about NetLab, since it's actual real equipment that you're configuring remotely, it takes a few minutes. So it takes about 10 minutes to set everything up. So it's going to take a while, and that's why I have already set one up. And here's kind of what NetLab looks like. Now, yours is going to look a little different, right? So if we go back to, let's look at this one, exploring router physical characteristics. This may not be a good one. Let's take a look. Yeah, so if you were to you went to NetLab and you signed up for 6.3.2.7, exploring router physical characteristics. When you entered that lab, it would look exactly like this. You'd see the same topology that you see on the PDF document, right? This shows, since I'm in an instructor pod, well, I'm in the same pod, but I'm here for instructor use. This shows me the whole topology. So this is all the equipment that we have available in each pod. Each of the 16 pods is identical. We've got 3 routers, 3 switches, 3 PCs, and this adaptive security appliance that we use for CCNA security. So the way we use NetLab is, if I want to configure R3 here, router 3, I'm just going to click on it. It downloads a little Java file, so I'm going to click keep and then open it. It's going to work its Java magic, and then click run. And now it's open. I've got a little window here, and this is me configuring this actual router sitting in a rack somewhere on the IUPUI campus, right? So I can start typing commands just like I would to configure the router. Right, so I could go into, say, interface G00 and give it an IP address. And activate it. There we go. So I'm actually configuring that router right here, right? And if I want to, I can click on another device here, click keep, click the downloaded file to open it up. And so now I'm in this switch, right? So I've got a router and a switch open, and I can click on either one. I can keep these both open if I want to. And so I have these little sessions, console sessions they're called. We'll learn more about console sessions, but these little sessions to configure these devices. So again, the big difference between NetLab and Packet Tracer is NetLab is actual live equipment that you're configuring remotely, which means it supports everything that live equipment supports. It is live equipment. Packet Tracer, as good as it is a simulator, and so not all of the features of real equipment are supported in Packet Tracer. So it's great for things like simulation, right? Slowing things down and looking at each packet individually, and it's great for mocking up networks to see how certain protocols work. But there are some features, especially as we get into NETI 205 and 215, that Packet Tracer just doesn't support. Here in NETI 105 and 115, we're pretty good. There's just one or two things that it won't do for us. So, do I want to save my work? I'm going to say no. Nope. So that is a brief introduction of NetLab and Packet Tracer. Oh yeah, by the way, with NetLab here, when I'm done, I can click save if I want to. It's really great for me as an instructor. I can, after you complete a lab, I can go and I can see every command that you typed, and I can see every device configuration. So it's really great. Click save and then click I'm done, right? And that says, are you sure you're done? And we'll say okay, and that's been completed now, right? Now I'm actually in 2 labs, so I'm going to click I'm done on this one. I've got 46 minutes left. This one's actually still initializing, so I'll let it go for a little bit. But up here it shows you how many minutes you have left to that little countdown timer to tell you how much. It won't let you reserve more than about 4 hours at a time, so keep that in mind. But then, seriously, who wants to do more than 4 hours of NetLab at a time? So I hope you guys found that helpful. It's right about 20 minutes, a little bit longer than I like videos to be. But, well, okay, I'm lying. I will post many more videos throughout the course of the semester where I go through the material and kind of talk about the stuff that we're looking at that week. And those may be a little bit longer, 45 minutes to an hour or so. I don't expect you to watch the whole thing. But if it's there if you want it, right? And the great thing about YouTube is you can watch it on your time. When you want to, you can fast forward and rewind and watch it over and over 100 times if you want to. And it's always there. So I'll be posting YouTube videos pretty much on every chapter that we're going to cover, right? So there is Packet Tracer and NetLab. Let's go back here to the modules page. And I hope you guys found that a little bit useful in navigating Packet Tracer and NetLab. Hopefully that makes sense now. When you see something that says lab, we're going to do it in NetLab. When you see something that says Packet Tracer, we're going to do it in Packet Tracer, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. And then let me just point one thing out, I guess. A lot of times I've seen students tempted to try to do the labs in Packet Tracer. And it's possible, but I really recommend you do them in NetLab, because the skills exam, when we get to the end of the semester, the skills exam in week 15 is in NetLab. It's not in Packet Tracer. So if you've been using Packet Tracer for everything all semester and then suddenly you're thrown into NetLab, that's just more pressure on top of the natural pressure that comes from taking a big skills exam that's like a quarter of your grade almost. So, I would recommend doing all the labs in NetLab, doing the Packet Tracers, the Packet Tracers obviously going to be Packet Tracers. So that is it. Remember to get to NetLab, it's NetLab1, NetLab and the number 1.ivtech.edu. Your username is your IVTech username, and your password is password, and then the number 1, all lowercase. So that's the other thing you need to do during this first week of class, right? Work through that Packet Tracer 101 course. Do your syllabus quiz to make sure, or your syllabus acknowledgement, whatever it was, to make sure you don't get dropped as a no-show. And then we'll really start taking off next week when we look at Chapter 1, exploring the network, and then we'll take off from there. So feel free to look at what we're going to cover during the next few sessions. We're basically going to look at a couple of networking models and break each layer in that model down and look at it in more detail. So that is it for Packet Tracer and NetLab. Hope you guys found this helpful, and I will definitely be seeing you in a future video. Take care until then.